Welcome to Great American Underdog, where you can find the courage to act, the resilience to keep going, and the discipline when motivation fades. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're doing all the right things? You're working hard, you're trying to stay consistent, but deep down, you still don't trust yourself when the pressure hits? That's what today's episode is about. My guest is Kiva Geiger, a former professional soccer player turned high ticket sales and mindset coach. He's built himself twice, first in the world of sports, then again after leaving that identity behind and rebuilding from scratch in sales and entrepreneurship. In this episode, you're going to hear how to perform under pressure, how to stop self sabotaging when the moment matters the most, and why the fastest way to change your results is to change the version of you that shows up when it gets uncomfortable. If you get value from this conversation, please be sure to subscribe, like this video, comment your biggest takeaway, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. It's my honor to welcome Kiva Geiger.
Hey, Rob, man, appreciate you for having me here, dude. I'm excited to, share some stories and, really connect with people.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to have you on. Since the day that I met you, man, it's been nothing but instant connection. So I've heard you say before, when you have to become someone new to hit a new level, what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, in order to receive something new into your experience, you have to, let something die. Right. Or, like there's I love this saying. It's, from David Nangle. He talks about belief systems. And, one of the belief systems, that he talks about is, like two of them, the terror barrier. So the terror barrier is when you say you want this new thing, your mind unconsciously is going to create and fabricate every reason why you can't have it. And so it's our job to be aware of what's true and what's not true and to identify, obviously like 99.9% of our thoughts are not true, right? So, again, what we're trying to do is create awareness to what it is that we want and what's in front of us and preventing us from getting there. He talks about these things called laws, like laws of life, right? There's a law of sacrifice. It means that you have to let go of a lower belief in order for you to, receive something higher. And I love that saying. It sounds kind of like woo-wah and all that good stuff. But if you really think about it, it's like you have to let go of this lower belief. A lower belief would be something that's not in service to you. It is a fear. It is maybe a regret or something that won't pertain to moving you forward. So you have to let go of that belief and that old way of thinking in order for you to receive the new person or the new actions that you need to take in order to create the outcome you want, which is either you transforming as a person or creating the outcome that you want versus, what some people call like the cycle of stuck, where you're kind of perpetually in this motion of doing things that are not getting where you want to be.
I think people feel that rather because they get stuck trying to gather so much information instead of doing. And a lot of times there's a certain amount of pressure. So they don't fail a lot of times because of the amount of information they have or their tactics. They fail because of who they actually become under pressure, no matter what it is that they want. So like do you agree with that? Do you see that a lot in your coaching as well, where you have to
Oh,
kind
I
of help people get out of that pressure state?
For sure, 100%. I think a lot of times we don't think about this, but your own personal problems can actually become your business problems. So something that happened to you in the past that and we can say we can call it trauma or maybe a bad experience can then, be dictating the way that you're operating right now. Does that make sense? So the goal behind it, in this whole thing again, it's self-awareness. Like there's no way that you can ever say you're self-aware. It constantly is always evolving and changing. And so for me, what I'm really looking for when I'm working with clients is like, do they really believe this? This is an unconscious thing. I really like to listen to the things that they're saying because it tells you a lot about how we think. So, for example, if someone is constantly in, let's say like a negative mindset, talking about something that won't happen, then it's like, that's the more likely outcome that's going to happen because they're more hyper fixated or focused on that thing.
Yeah, well, they're in essence, and it's not woo. It's real because we all work off of energy and frequency. It's one of the things you and I talked about when we first met, and it's
Hmm.
like you get stuck in this belief trap about yourself, and you never are able to essentially escape it. And like you said, you hear it in the words that people say and how they respond to questions. Right, like your view of yourself is going to either keep you where you are or propel you to new levels and new heights based on how you view yourselves. And a lot of that, like you said, is in relation to what they've experienced in their past and whether or not they can sometimes just let go of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm thinking of some like conversations that I had this week that are very similar to that, right? Like there's the self-sabotage, right? There's a part of us that will create outcomes that we don't want. And a lot of times it has to come from an outside perspective to help us see that stuff, like those roadblocks. Because, again, you don't want to keep making the same mistakes and the same outcomes and then not transforming because then that's again what leads into depression and, so on and so forth. And it's kind of like what we call like the cycle of stuck. If you're replaying the same things in your head again and again and again without the desired outcome. And so what I do is I focus, like life is polarity, straight up, man, right? Like you can't have the front of your hand without the back of your hand. So there's a version of you that has the things that you're looking for. And there's a version of you that's the now that's seeking those things. So my goal is always to bridge that gap as fast as possible in your sales or in your personal life. And a lot of those things correlate. So what ends up being like a sales coaching ends up being like, like personal coaching, life coaching in a way.
I totally agree, because if you can't
Hmm.
get past that state, you can't ever really grow a business, because there's a misalignment that's happening, and also just a true lack of confidence. What
For
is, like,
sure.
I guess, one simple I mean, there's no real simple answer for this. I know everything's case by case basis. But
Hmm.
what would be like a simple test to see if somebody's really self-sabotaging, and then how would they move more towards living confidently
Yeah.
in creating what they want to create?
So think of it as like symptoms, right? Like we all have symptoms there's always symptoms to a problem. So the first one that always pops up is like imposter syndrome. The second one will be a fear of success. Like you know that if you go and do these things, it will create this outcome, but you're scared of what that outcome or the energy that it will bring to you. So people live in their head about the entire process without actually in the physical world doing the same thing. Other ways of doing it is, is like when someone is selling one on one or they start selling for, they start trying to offer discounts. They they start trying to find ways that they do not feel like they're enough, right? They're people pleasers. So a lot of these things you might be unconscious about, but they will show up in personal conversations or if you feel a lack of. I was on a sales call with a guy recently and I was telling him how I'd worked with like Alex Hormozy's sales team and just training like a bunch of his reps. And this guy's actually trying to sell me on some like course or program. And it was funny because he's like, oh wow, like you worked with such a large team, like you should be selling me type of thing. So small example, right? Like what he did in that situation, if you're on the sales, he kind of gave his power away, right? A lot of us think that we're not worthy. And so a lot of times it's, it gets pretty deep, right? Like you really have to think about like, I'm worthy of having these clients. I'm worthy of having this business. But a lot of times it's like a combination of those symptoms that then compound together, which then will stagnate somebody from actually taking action. And so for me, it's always about action. Like for every action, you get a result. Like we need data. And I'm so data driven, especially around human interactions. It really does tell us what's working, what's not working. I mean, from a sales side of it, or just like, you just, doing housekeeping on your life, right?
Yeah, no
Yeah.
question. And I
Yeah.
think also there's this like fear of the unknown. And the fear of them saying no. What if they say no? Like, what is that going to do to what does that mean about me? When realistically, it has nothing a lot of times to necessarily do with you specifically. No could mean not right now. No could
Hmm.
mean later on. I'm not ready yet. No could mean that you're just getting closer, like as we both know, to a yes. Right. But if you're not willing to go and hear those no's, you get paid more for your no's as a sales professional, entrepreneur, business professional than sometimes you do for your yeses, because you're on your way to that yes, if that makes sense, right? Like you were able to have enough confidence, courage really to get that amount of no's, and it all culminates to that yes where you actually do get paid. And it's not necessarily going to be always the biggest contract or the most profitable deal, but if you don't stay in it long enough and allow that compound effect to happen, as you know, and hear the no enough, it's going to be a dead end road for you in the world of business and sales. And also just like in life, if you want to go out and get what you want in this life, you're going to hear no a lot of times. And you should really look at that as a way of course correcting and navigating around that rather than a barrier or a roadblock.
No, 100%, 100%. It kind of got me thinking about like a recent conversation of understanding. So if you were to break it down, it's like the beliefs that we like, or think about like the beliefs that we keep as people, like around ourself, right? And then the behaviors that we keep around those beliefs. And then what we have to do is we have to actually separate the thinking. So what does that belief let you keep, right? So a lot of times it's like if I don't make these calls or if I don't do these things, then X, Y, and Z will happen, right? Or if I go in and make all these calls and then I do create the opportunities that I've been looking for, X, Y, Z will happen. So the energy should be more focused on the action versus like the thought. And a lot of times procrastination and a lot of things become the stagnant fear of like taking action because you're scared of like what the outcome might be. It might not be your desired outcome. But the best part about it, like I'm such a, believer in, like faith is the currency of the universe, that there's something greater for you on the other side beyond your own thing. So when you take the chance on yourself, you're taking a chance on you and the opportunities that can come along with it. There's always a win. There's always a plus. Even if it's small, it's incremental. And the ego, like all of us, like, we have different interpretations of ego, but let's just call it our subconscious, has this barrier that protects us, and it has this like vision of who we are. And so in order for us again to climb that ladder, it's again like challenging the ego. You got to be uncomfortable more often. And uncomfortability is being around people that are doing things, being in places and actions around people that are constantly elevating. Like those are ways to really break out of that pattern. Because a lot of it's all self-induced, right? Like
Mhm.
you're just doing these things you're not really sure, or you have a coach or someone to help you see those blind spots. Um, but those are kind of some things that, really, really play into that, like transformation piece, right? Like we need to know what the problems are. And then, I'm more than happy to talk about how to get out of it.
Yeah, and I love how you also just what you said about belief, right? Like it's the currency, faith rather is the currency of the universe. And it's so
Hmm.
true because even in my own life, right? Like the times where I was more interested or thinking about the outcome, I lost myself in taking the action, right? Like I was so concerned about whether the outcome was good or bad. You start hyper fixating on it and you lose yourself in the present moment when really like just have faith and go into it with your best foot forward. Like just be you. And I think that some people are scared to do that because they feel that others are going to not like them for who they really are or how they approach a situation. But the right people are always going to like the frequency, the vibration, the magnetism that you bring into this world. The right people will gravitate to that. It's impossible for them not to because what's meant for you is ultimately going to come. You just have to, like you said before, get out of your own way enough to allow yourself to get there. Right.
Right.
So take me back a little bit here, Kava, because
Yeah.
I'm very curious about your background, right? Like I know that you've grew up in the States, but you also grew up, I believe, in Nairobi
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
some
Love
time.
it. I did.
So
Yeah.
talk to me about a little bit what life was like there. What did you
Mhm.
learn early on? I guess that shaped your mindset to who you are now.
For sure, definitely. Yeah. So I was born and raised here in Seattle, Washington. And when I was 3 years old, my mom took me and we moved to Kenya, and I lived there until uh, probably like primary school. And then in between the years, I just traveled like back and forth, just keeping those ties between Kenya. My mom is my from Kenya, born and raised in Kenya, came here when she was 18. She lived in the States ever since then. And it's a blessing, right? Like my mom has been here long enough to really know and bring me up in such a beautiful way here in America, and I really appreciate it. Uh, the home experience in Kenya was like completely different. I mean, it transforms. Like traveling to me is so important. Like if you get the opportunity to travel to Africa in general, like take that trip, like make that investment, take that opportunity to really see how big the world is. Those experiences for me have been phenomenal. I got the chance to play professional soccer. I was playing for a team called Mathare United, which is phenomenal experience. It really, I mean, you just learn the difference of like world economics, like what being poor really really means. I was playing with guys that are getting paid good money that live in the slums, and soccer's their way of getting out of the hood. And also my grandfather was a coffee farmer back in the day. So he was the chieftain. And so, we've got a lot of lineage around like coffee. I'm a big coffee connoisseur. So if anybody wants to talk coffee with me, hit me up. I know some good ones I can recommend for sure. But yeah, that experience for me really gave me a very entrepreneurial mindset because my mom was an entrepreneur. And so seeing the abilities of what it gave her the opportunities to travel to Africa and back, being able to get new experiences, travel the coast and see how big the world was, uh, it's invaluable, man. I see the importance of why, if you're a parent, you think about like traveling, like you want to give your kids world experiences that really shapes who they are. And it really helped me become more of who I am. I mean, I traveled to Kenya by myself when I was 16, probably one of the scariest things I ever did. And you'd be blown away, man. I ended up taking I figured out the bus system in England, and I literally took the double decker buses. I did the whole underground, went from Manchester City. I had like a day to kind of just figure some stuff out. I made it back in time just for my flight at 16, just kind of traveling around, Oxford Circle and checking out London and stuff like that. But to me, taking those chances on adventures is like that's just who I am. I'm always looking for adventures in life, not only in my personal growth, but like in travel and meeting new people. It's phenomenal. Like networking really does change, like who you are and the experiences that you get.
It creates an open-mindedness to be able to learn about how other people live, and
Yeah,
also be able to create a higher level of perception that allows you to interact with people differently than someone who, let's just say, stays in the same environment their entire life. Because again, your environment can very much shape your reality, and some people never leave that circle of reality, if you will, right? So, like, just very early on, you already had that experience. How did you end up in professional soccer? Was that always something that was a passion for you and something that you wanted to chase? Or were you
yeah.
driven by external circumstance?
Honestly, external circumstances, man. Of anything that I've ever done, I've put all of my energy into. And I just happen to have the talent and be an athlete. Like I had it, right? And with that, I realized I have some skill sets and it started in high school was kind of like a joke because I didn't really want to play basketball. I didn't like the basketball team. And out of spite, it just became like I'm just going to play soccer as a joke. A bunch of hooligans on the high school team, and I had such a great time growing as a person and just realizing like how much fun the game was that I took it serious before my senior, like way before my senior year, like probably like freshman year, and I started playing club, started playing some select teams and things like that, and then uh, after high school, it was kind of like that moment where, everyone kind of, what happens with soccer? Do you finish it? Do you go try to play out for semi-pro? I wasn't even sure if I was even at that level to play, but I went and tried out for the community college. I got on as a walk-on, which was great. And yeah, I played with them for that year. That really developed my skill. Unfortunately, school was not my strongest suit, so I did not return the second year. And so because of that, I still was passionate about soccer, but I didn't want to give it up. Right, I'm 20 years old. Um, I don't want to give it up. I love the game. So what I did is I lived across the street from the community college, and they had a field, and I bought a bunch of soccer balls, and I would train there every single day. I did it for probably like man, like couple months, almost like more than half a year, just every single day, just hitting the green at 5 in the morning, doing sprints, doing ball jugs, things like that. My game just elevated. And I just happened to be around really good coaches and support. And then we go to Kenya. I tell one of my cousins he has a good connection to one of the Premier League teams. They make the connection. Next minute, I know I'm trying out for the team. Next minute, I know I'm signing some documents, and there you go. I'm with Mathara United, and the experience was phenomenal. I mean, I almost had the chance of actually training with the national team uh, way back in the day. So when they were playing against Namibia, but unfortunately, I didn't have dual citizenship at the time. So I might have missed that opportunity. But the great part was actually like fulfilling my dream of soccer and playing at the highest level.
Yeah, man. I mean, either way, look how far you took it after, just going on in high school saying like, let me just do something for kind of fun,
Right?
And
Yeah. To me,
and,
it was all a surprise, man. You know what I mean?
well, for me with boxing, it was the same too. If you had asked anybody in my family if I would ever have been a boxer, they would have all laughed at you. And I've shared that on other shows,
Yeah.
because you would have never, I would have never thought that that was going to be in the cards for me and how it happened. But that's another story for another time. But I
Hmm.
definitely resonate with like the parallel of that. And then you get to a certain point where you realize there are levels to it, right? And you were able
Yeah.
to have enough mental discipline to say, I have to go and train and put my all into this. This is my opportunity to do that. So like, was there I guess there was that moment for you where the pressure you started to feel that pressure that you were elevating in levels and the talent around you was also elevating. And it was that moment of either rising or falling back, if you will.
Hmm. It all came to you remember when I said like, hope is the currency of the universe, right? Like I had so
Mhm.
much hope in my ability and I believed it unconditionally. Like there was just no doubt in my mind. And with that, I understood like what comes along with that. And that's just practice. It's just the reps, And just to share something personal, like when I was a kid, I actually grew up with dyslexia, man. And um, my mom, if she ever listens, she'll laugh, but she didn't believe it. They were trying to put me into a kind of like reading like class or something like that. But the good old belt and the weekly thesaurus like newsletters they gave out like brought me back to my reading level. And so for me, what I looked at is like, okay, so I don't have a disability. What I have is like a superpower. Like if I focus on something enough, it'll always work out. And I was just, like that one learning experience from my mom, it's comical, right? But it became a real life thing and made me believe that anything was possible. So when I jumped into the soccer, I just was like, okay, so I'm mediocre. Like I'm average like the other. I'm not getting a ton of goals. I'm just at the right place, the right time, making assists and doing those things. And I was a striker. What took me to the next level was realizing like I need to practice more. Like the guys that are really good are practicing. And it was right around that time uh, it was a little bit after, we had like, Kobe the Mamba, like the Black Mamba. There's like this whole thing on it, we can talk about later, but it just talks about how he recreated himself to be the Black Mamba. And I just remember that mentality of just like, in my mind, it was like a gamification. I just need to be locked in. I just need to play my best and whatever happens will happen. As long as I train,
Right.
those skill sets that I learned in training will show up when it comes game day.
Yeah, again, the hope and faith being the currency of the universe. You just said, let me just have faith in what I'm doing, and it'll show up when it comes game day. On my
Mhm.
my side of it with boxing was more like if I don't if I don't go out there and just try to kill this other person, especially at first when my skill was lower, I'm gonna get my
Yeah,
ass kicked. So it was
yeah,
more of like a defending myself kind of thing. But I totally get that, right? Because then as your skills develop, you start having that faith in yourself. Floyd Mayweather would always say, he's like, I'm the best, I'm the best in the world. Like you hear all the athletes at the top of their game and in business, like I'm the best in what I do in my space. And they just believe that to their core. And then it's felt by everybody around them. So I think that you not kind of, but you elevated yourself because of your belief system, especially after what you had gone through with dyslexia. And on my side, I had a little bit of a speech impediment. I couldn't say the word mule
yeah,
or
I remember
anything with
the
mules. So I used to say
yeah,
meal. I used to say meal instead of mule. So now you all know that
yeah,
world. I listen to the show. But yeah, no, I totally get that, man. It makes total sense. When soccer ended for you,
mm,
tell me a little bit about what that was like. Because obviously you had that as the main meat and potatoes of your life for so long, from 16 till what?
yeah. Man, so pretty much my soccer career ended when I got back from Kenya, so at that time, I was, right around, like, 24, 23, um, and, I was young, man, I was really hungry, I was to the point where the ego took over where I believed I was really, really good, and
Okay.
when I tried out for, a team, um, it just didn't work out. because I didn't have like the tape, I didn't have the background, I didn't have the resume. Like it's like, hey, you were playing community college, then you went to Africa, and now you're back. Like what's going on? And so it just created more questions and it did more opportunities when I came back. And oh, that was hard for me. It's like it was like the death of something, right? It was like I have to let go of this dream that I've had. And the toughest part is like I didn't want to be one of those guys that was going to be like, oh yeah, I used to play, professional back in the day, and have bar stories and things like that. I wanted to keep chasing after it, but my ego was crushed when I wasn't accepted. And I think that was like the first time, um, I had to learn a lot about myself internally, right? Like my expectations versus the reality. So I'd put on the pedestal that I was actually going to get this opportunity to play MLS. And then when I scoured for that opportunity and it didn't, materialize, um, I was in a pretty dark place, man. It was pretty hard. I mean, you're young and you're fast. You're healthy. You got everything going, and it's like you have the opportunity to play for one of the best teams um, in MLS. And to me, it was just I thought it was going to go all down that road path, and it didn't. And so, um, yeah, it was tough. I'll be honest. Yeah, at the
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
listen, I get it. In 2015,
Yeah.
I won Golden Gloves in 2012. In 2015, I entered Diamond Gloves. I lost in the semifinals. I got dropped with a body shot with like 20 seconds left. And then I got
Mhm.
up, walked towards the ref, and then he just called off the fight. And then I didn't fight again after that. And for a while, it was like a kind of like a stamp on like, is this really who I am? Like, am I a quitter? All these different things. Am I really meant to box? And then I just thought about like you said, like you have all this raw talent and raw ability, and
Mhm.
it kind of it is a piece of you that you're wondering like, is that really who I am? Because you tie so much of your identity into something like that. So it's crazy, but I also understand. Did losing that piece of your identity, uh, was that like a confidence thing? And like, how did that ultimately affect your sense of direction at that moment? Like,
Yeah, because I think it's like anything else, right? Like if you have a professional job of anything, you kind of characterize yourself as like that representation of it. So, like
yeah,
this, I have this job and doing these things, and that's how people see you in that way. And so, it was hard because again, I had buddies and friends that were, traveling around different states, playing for different teams and things like that.
right.
Um, and I really thought I was going to be like that guy, the breakthrough and the opportunity. Uh, but what really lied in that, I think for me was just growth, internal growth, like
Was
really just
there
looking.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. What'd you say?
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah, yeah. To me, it was just digging deep into personal growth. It needed to happen, right? Like, I think if you think about like personal setbacks, like you kind of you went through, and the same thing I went through.
Yeah.
Um, it was a like it was a canon event, I guess to say. It
I'm so
was,
glad so glad you
yeah, it
said that.
was like, yeah, yeah, it was a special moment that the universe was trying, God was trying to bring to me to have a realization of awareness about myself, like my ability to commit to something and create it. So, if I can do this in one area, why not do it in other areas? And so that's always been my mindset. It's like, you gotta feel the emotions. Like, it was highly emotional, I think, like anything. It's like when you let go of something that you're super passionate about and that becomes your identity, and now you have to recreate and become somebody else and somebody new, it's tough because you're gonna have the past pulling you. So people, "Oh, are you still playing soccer? Are you still doing these things?" And realizing those things will trigger you, and realizing that, you're not that person anymore, and being okay not being that person anymore. And I think like that those elements of just personal development, for me, were really pivotal, man.
But you know what's so crazy about that, Kiva, is
Mm,
like
mm.
it's still a part of who you are. And
It is, yeah.
the reason that I say that is because like it's like soccer for you, boxing will always be a part of my life. And there was a point in my life where I said, well, if I'm not fighting, like I'm not a boxer. Like, but then I was still, even after that fight in 2015, I was still sparring. I was still active in the gym. I was still training to this day at 34 years old, still training. Haven't sparred in a little while, but that's right now because life happens in seasons. but the things that you learned in that season of your life brought you to where you are right now. And there's personality traits and characteristics, like you said, the canon moment, that moment that had to happen for you to become who you are. Maybe if you become a professional soccer player, again, could have been great, but you could have had an injury. Who knows what could have happened? But your life happened the way it did right now because it
Hmm.
was, I believe, meant to. It was part of your destiny to be aligned with the person that you've become today.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's any real accidents in the universe, right? So
No, it's all perfect.
I commend you on your journey tremendously, and just know that you carry that with you always in your heart and soul.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's a great way to look at it in that way. I mean, it's like such a far version, that to me, I always think like if I go back in time, that'd be the one key advice to give the younger version of me in that moment because I wouldn't change how it all played out. I mean, I'm at where I'm at for a reason, but
Yeah.
in that moment, it was all the things that we've talked about too in the beginning. A lot of stuff like there was the fear of success, like chasing this dream and then wanting to see if this thing would go out, and then you finally chase it and then it doesn't work out, right? But that's what life is about. It's about you taking chances on yourself, experiencing life, and then having like these really cool stories to share about it.
Yeah, no question about it, man. It's and for you, it's a unique story, like mine as well. At least I
Yeah.
feel that they're unique. No two stories are alike. I'm sure there's other people that have similar things that maybe have
Th-
happened, but
Yeah.
again, it is unique to you, and it is a differentiator. I'm curious, like, what was the first decision for you that started now, like the second evolution of Kiva Geiger, right? Because now I know that you end up getting into sales, and very much
Yeah.
like me, I'm so curious. At first, when I started in sales,
Yeah.
I was I was Google for people. I gave people too much information. So, like,
Mhm.
talk to me about, like, what was the first decision you made on that second build? And then you said that you hit rock bottom in sales where, like, the scripts and the grind wasn't working. Like, what was, I guess, actually broken in that
Yeah.
time period during that second build?
So I think like everyone's had some really interesting sales jobs. I had some very interesting sales jobs. When I got back from Kenya, my immediate thing was like I needed to get a job because I had an apartment. So I needed to get, income coming back in and everything. The first job I was like shotgunning my resume, no lie. Like I literally just put it together, shotgunning my resume to all these companies out there and stuff. Um, Bro, I was selling Botox and, Juvederm. So, I was doing consultations with people about their skin, had no idea what I was doing. I was selling Botox. I mean, you would never believe that I was actually selling Botox. I tell people this type of stuff, it's mind-boggling, and I would work with a ton of estheticians, there's a doctor in the
Wow.
office and everything too. So, that was my introduction into sales because I needed a job right away. This company went under within less than a month. So they were telling me they were firing people left and right. They would tell me to go see a movie and then come back. And then eventually, they ended up letting me go, which was actually a blessing in disguise.
Right.
Uh, but but that was one of the hardest like sales roles I've ever had because it was such an awkward thing talking about people's face and things like that. It was just not my jam. Uh, After that, I needed to find something like super immediate. And so, because I jumped into sales, because I love talking to people, I
Right.
figured, okay, I'm good at talking to people. There must be something that I can do to make money doing this. And that's what got me into, telecoms. I started off in selling cell phones in a mall, talking to people. I actually had to get over my fear of myself, of how people would perceive me. So, I was talking to an old buddy of mine. He's like, you used to be so quiet back in the day. And like now it's great to see, you're doing speeches and you're all this stuff and talking on stage. But for me, it was I just remember like you're in a kiosk in a mall, right? And people walk past you all the time, and you have to find a way to intrigue them enough to listen to you, to start a conversation, and then ask them about their cell phone bill, and then offer them a new opportunity in a cell phone. And so for me, in my mind, it was like this is going to be the hardest thing, but I got really good at it really quickly because I figured out what was really important to people in conversations, and that was kind of like my entry into sales at an early age, and then it just kind of like snowballed into other companies and other opportunities.
Real quick, what was that thing that you recognized in the conversations you were having that kind of flipped the switch?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's only three things that are important to people. It's either your family, your hobby, or your job. So what I would do is I would try to figure out a way to start a conversation like, "Oh, hey, nice shoes." And then I'd be like, "Oh, what do you got going on this weekend?" And it would just be so quick, right? Because subconsciously, like you can ask somebody 3 questions in order and they will answer it. Typically this will happen with like anyone that's like a boomer, if anyone's curious. But the concept behind it again is
I break that down.
you just have to be curious. And I was just curious enough of getting to know people. People want to get to know me, and then it would give me the ability and permission to ask more questions. But again, like my way of being able to connect with people was just identifying those 3 things. Is it your hobby? Is it your job, or is it, your family? And then I would just lean into those things, because in reality, what I figured out is that we all have something in common. And I'm just have to be curious and figure that out. Once I bridge that gap, you and I can become friends. Once we're friends, you're more likely to buy from me. So that was like my repeated mindset around like how to create opportunities with, out of nothing, especially in the mall.
Yeah, and people, I think in sales especially, they think that they have to just be like, "Well, I'll just know my product so well and I'll say the script perfectly," and people are gonna just be like, "Okay, here's my money. What do you got?" And it's just not the case. They gotta know that you understand them and that you get them. And like you said, that there's a correlation of like, we're both humans, you're dealing with problems. I need to help you solve those problems, but I also need you to know that you can trust me. The way you can trust me is that we have commonalities, and I understand where you're at in your life because I've asked you all these types of questions. Like even in what I do with Payvora, with the agents that I coach
Mm.
that work
Mhm.
with me, I'm just like, when you go into a business, like you have to just be so genuinely curious about what's going on in their business. They don't want to hear you come in and say, "Hey, by the way, like, buy my I have a great service for you that you should buy. Like, how much are you paying in fees?" Like, they don't know. They have no idea who you are. Why are you interrupting me in the middle of my day, right? So, like, that is such a that is such a great point that I think everybody just needs to really hear. Like, how do you, I guess now, when you translate that to your coaching, do you kind of just break it down the same way for people? Is just genuinely be curious and ask questions?
Yeah, it's a combination of that, right? Like each one of us is going through different experiences in our lives. Um, like the way that it works is really about asking the right questions to help you think through your current problem. So, I'll give an example. When I was stuck, what was life like for me to be stuck? What what did I feel like when I was stuck? What did I say to myself when I was stuck? What was my consciousness of being stuck? And then what was the thing that I did to get me unstuck? So, like the dialogue of what we're having within ourselves is really important. But there's this saying that someone said to me. It's like one of the greatest blessings is hitting your shit. It's like when things just don't work out, right? Period, right? The second blessing is hitting your shit and knowing exactly what to do to get out of it because you've been there before. And so that's kind of like what I kind of constantly like kind of try to preach is like bring awareness around like how are you thinking about the circumstance? How are you thinking about the problem? Because again, it's something like deeper. It's like pulling the onion back a little bit further. And it's sometimes honestly, it's a lot more simple than what you think it is.
Well, I think we end up over complicating it. There's this book that was shared with me called No Can Do by Ken Blanchard. If you never read it, it's a very short read. But essentially, he says there's this gap between like knowing and doing, right? And usually it's a combination of information
Oh
overload
yeah.
and
Yes.
stinking thinking, right? Like we gather too much information, and then we also think too little of ourselves to go out and make a difference, right? And that keeps us from actually doing things. And then the other piece of that too would be our environment, right? So like, even you were in an environment, you were at a kiosk in a mall, and you were still able to have these realizations, turn the switch and turn that information and maybe some negative thinking and turn it into action by getting curious.
Hmm. Yeah. Can you say that question again?
Yeah, no, it wasn't really a
Oh,
question, more of a statement of, like, knowing
oh
and
yeah,
doing.
yeah.
Between knowing and doing is information overload and stinking thinking. Like, we stop ourselves from doing things, even no matter, like, how much we know because of those 2 things. So, like, you, for example, even in that mall scenario, you're at a kiosk, you're in an environment that would be very uncomfortable for a lot of people, just trying to stop people in the middle of their shopping. You're a complete interruption to their day, right? So like, you know, you had to change your internal thought process and be like, let me get genuinely curious about what people are doing, maybe even just in their shopping. And when you did that, it sounds like you started to now find that level of success.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And when we
Right.
talk about like environment, Kava, um,
Mhm.
what what is something that people could do, I guess, I think that that could be something that stops people in their tracks too, is like their environment. Like, how do they audit that environment that they are? What's maybe some signs that their environment is also too small for them? Because of course, like where you are now, you obviously outgrew the kiosk in the mall, right? So we all
Yeah,
want to outgrow the proverbial kiosk in the mall at some point.
for sure. Yeah, I think environment plays a key, like, I mean, it plays a it plays key to our growth, period. Like, there's just so many instances in my own personal life where I've looked at, because I was in this room with these people in this environment, it helped elevate me and the way that I think about myself and what's possible, right?
Mhm.
Your social circle, the people that you surround yourself with is actually true. Like you have to think about like the 5 people that you're around. You have to think about the conversations that you have, how you interact with them. And it's not to like per se, like it all has to be about growth. You know, like there's relationships where it's just these people are around me because they make me feel good and they empower me and they believe in me and what I do. Um, Environment is it's like this, man. Um, would you prefer to have the mindset to be in any environment and still get shit done?
Yeah, I want to get
That's what I
shit
do to
done.
Yeah, and that's what I do to people is I prepare you mentally to be in any environment and still get shit done because your environment, if you're blaming your environment, then you're blaming your that's a victim mindset. You're not owning. So then okay, so if your environment's not ideal for where you need to work, well then own it. Go take a risk and rent out an office space. I'm not telling you to do that, but go rent an office space, get yourself in a positive environment where people are doing. I was talking to a good friend of mine. She does a lot of great stuff when it comes to social media, and she's always giving me great ideas. She moved to Texas, changed her environment, joined a cohort where there's a bunch of people working in the same building and stuff like that. It's completely uplifted her business because she changed her environment. But before she could change her environment, she had to change the way that she was thinking. She knew that she's like, I need to be around like other high performers. Where are these other high performers? So she meditated on it, didn't have a clear answer, but um, she knew that there was something available for her. The move essentially was, you know, like her and her partner were like moving in together. So it was like a decision and wanting to change a little bit of environment. But to me, the conversation with her was about up leveling your environment. It's 2 parts, right? Don't be the victim and create some bullshit stories around like why you can't have this and why you can't have that. Take ownership, realize what you're doing is not working, and then go put yourself in an environment with people that are doing what you need to do. Because coincide, it's like you can be the victim or you can take ownership. So I kind of prepare people in both ways in a lot of instances. I try to take the blame out because the blame, I mean, it's just like what they call like the cycle of stuck. Like you're just going to keep blaming all these things of why you can't have this stuff, and that's just you know as like a human being and taking responsibility, it's your responsibility to take responsibility in your own life and the actions that you take, and wherever you're currently at, you are responsible. So take ownership. Don't hit your shit about it. Just know that there's something better for you, and then start exploring it. Start talking to people. Um, the other thing I like about changing your environment is like you just need to be in other rooms. There's been so many times I've gone to networking events. I'm like, what am I even doing here? And then that room is the best room that I could have been in. I mean, you know, I went to Business Bourbon and Cigars with you, man, and it was phenomenal. Like that was the room I needed to be in. I got to meet you. I got to hang out with some other great, amazing entrepreneurs and friends that are now I can call friends, which is great. But I also got to up level, you know, and those are the experiences. Like if you're thinking about changing your environment, change your environment by going to networking events that have the right people, your people that are doing the things that you want to do, or even doing bigger and scarier things. I hear it on podcasts and other people talk about all the time. Like we got to stop trying to be the smartest people in the room and put ourselves in uncomfortable places to learn.
Yeah, and that I think that also goes back to like the fear of being rejected. That people want to, and it's also the ego piece, right, Kava? Because
Oh
you know
man,
you're like,
yeah,
oh well, if I don't show these people that I'm intelligent by what I'm saying and how I'm acting, they're not going to want to do business with me. They're not going to want to talk to me, and that's just so not true. If you just say like, yeah, no, you're you're a PhD in that field. I'm like a third grader in that field, and I'm okay
Hmm.
with being the third grader right now. Where you just have to be able to accept that, and then people want to pour into you, right? Like even in business bourbon cigars, I've been poured into by so many people there, and you included in that, right? Like our conversation that we had on the bus, like instant connection, dude, and just the things that
Yeah.
we both resonated with. But there were things that even on this podcast right now, and that first time that we really talked, you were saying things that were a shift for me in terms of how I thought, right? Like I had the ideas and I was just like, oh wow, like just the way you talk about alignment and frequency and the universe and just being connected, right? And how that translates into business and influence in these conversations and in your relationships. You said things differently than I did. And when you have an open mind again to being able to listen, you pick those up. And I think that for the people listening, I would ask you, like, what's, I guess, one simple, I guess, networking or relationship habit that they can start that they can carry into for like even just on a go forward at any events that they go to or even in just their day to day.
Yeah, I got this. I think the big way to look at it this way is networking to me is the lifeblood of who we are. Like without networking, you and I wouldn't have connected, and be able to shoot this awesome podcast, right? And the way that I think about it, and I want to just have you think about it, is very simple. Set the intention of what you want. Be really clear on that intention. Give an example. I went to SalesCon. My intention was to meet 8 people every day. 5 of those people would be really awesome. Like people that I can connect with, learn from, connect. Jump on their podcast, whatever it may be. Just find ways of genuinely connecting with them, and then 3 sales opportunities. So I could have 3 sales calls with potential prospects. I exceeded that number. I was doing like almost 16 a day, but I was talking to great people. Be focused on the person that's in front of you. But before you do that, you have to set the intention before you even walk out the door of that apartment, of your hotel, or wherever you're going to that networking event, and be really clear. I love this analogy when you think about the car that you drive, right? I think you and I talked about this before too. So the trick is behind it is like you have the ability of seeing an inanimate object. Like so the car that you drive, you'll be driving the road and you see in the corner of your eye. So the mind, what we're talking about is the mind has a way of like pinpointing something. So what I'm trying to do is teach people how to hyper focus your networking on the right people so you run to the right people all the time. So before I even had met you, I'd set the intention. I was like, yo, I just want to meet some amazing people, build some great connections that will, help me elevate as an individual and grow my business. And that was my intention going into it. And I met a lot of great people. And so, when you're going out there, the simple process is sit down by yourself quietly, write down your intentions of what you want to get out of that meeting. Write down, like the people that you would like to connect with and meet. The other thing that I like when you do events like this, and the business bourbon cigars was phenomenal because you got to actually talk with some of the headline speakers like it was casual conversation. And you didn't have to chase these people, or you could run into them behind stage, which I thought was like phenomenal. So the way that Scott had set it up was to me impeccable because I got to talk to some top tier people, and I didn't have to sit in a line or wait in a line just to talk to somebody. It was just a more organic conversation to get feedback and wisdom and knowledge from somebody that's in a place that I desire to be, or, want to get advice from. And so, again, set the intention, be clear on what you want, have fun at the networking event, speak to, some of the headline speakers, or ask for introductions to your network, and then just see what shows up. I mean, you'll be surprised.
Yeah, man, it's so true, and it's just funny because as you're saying that, like, you're labeling them as headline speakers, and that's what they are at a lot of events. But at the end of the day, they're just human beings, right? Like we're all just
Yeah.
freaking people. So, like,
Hmm.
when you go in with that intention, like you just said, like that authentic networking uh, intention, you go into it not to sell people. You're just like, how I just want to connect with great people, right?
Yeah.
And you take the pressure off of yourself ultimately. And even in
100%.
even in just going out in your local community, people think, oh, I got to go to this big event and everything like that if I want to find the right people. You'd be very surprised if you just go out into your local community. I went to a Chamber of Commerce event at a Red Robin recently, and I met
Hmm.
some incredible people, right? And if I didn't go, and I almost didn't, I was like, nah, I don't know, this, that, and third. And I was like, no, just go. And then I went, and I was like, holy crap. I ended up being able to get my brother-in-law a quote from one of the construction companies that was there. And he happened to wanting to be putting on a second edition on his house. And I was like, well, I just met somebody. Let me tee you up, like, and get you that quote. But if I don't go and just go there to just have conversations and be a real human, it doesn't happen.
Yes. I love that, man. It's all about participating in this game of life. Like there's so much opportunity for so many people, and it really takes is a simple belief shift and just knowing that you are worthy and those opportunities are coming your way. And just don't stand in your own way. Like that's what self-sabotage and a lot of these things are, is when you stand in your own way and you tell yourself a story that's not true about that thing, and then you don't show up. Where, you and I, it's like, let's go do something uncomfortable and show up and just see what happens. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and
What's what's the worst that's gonna happen? Literally nothing. Like,
not
I
nothing
love how you
exactly.
okay, I love how you put it as participating in this game of life. Just like I know
Ex-
that just sounds as simple, but it's true. Because I think so many people just don't participate in life, right? Like we live behind technology and screens and all these things. It's like, no, like there's real people out there in your
Yeah.
local community, even without even having to pay a ticket to go to an event, that want to connect with you, that also probably need your help. And you just got to go out and have the initiative to spark up those conversations. You know
Exactly.
you have, Kava, you have an upcoming book on authentic networking and influence, and I
Yes.
think we touched a bit on these
Mm.
topics, obviously, and naturally in our conversation. Talk to me a little bit about, like, what's the crux, essentially, of the book that you feel like people will get out of that versus other books they might read vertical?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't want to write something just to like give you something to like, like tax or interesting things. What the book entails is just life experiences of networking and how to effectively network. I've had the opportunity of just being in some of the most interesting rooms. Like, I was in a room with just some of the richest men in Kenya, a room full of billionaires. My fam group, I'm a part of, everyone's a multimillionaire, about a millionaire in that group, or exited a business that's, sold over 1 million. Right. Um, and so networking doesn't always have to be around like the big and the flashy things that are happening. Networking just needs to be around the things that you need for yourself and for your business. I share those highlights because I want there to be an aspiration for something more. But when I think about like the whole like networking thing, it's actually massively simple. The paid rooms are always the best rooms. Um, Being authentically yourself is the most effective thing that you can do. Other times it's really important to know who you're talking to. And if you don't need to sell everybody. What you need to do is just identify like what's important to them and build a genuine connection. Every person that I met when I was at SalesCon, the same thing, at Business Bourbon and Cigars, was a genuine connection about like what I said before, what's important to them. Is it their job, their hobby, or their family? So we're all there for business and we're all there to learn. So there must be some levels of business that are important to them. So that's an easy conversation. But what I try to do is I mean, I'm just me, man. I'm really curious about who you are as a person. Like I love human beings, right? And if there's a way that I can help you in my experience on my way to where I'm going, then yeah, I want to be able to support and help. I have boundaries like anyone else, right? Like I'm not open to everything, but I'm really clear on what it is that I want and really clear what I don't want. So when you think about like networking on your next coming events, it's kind of that same thing. You have to set the intention of what you want. Be very curious of what's important to that person as well. Identifies the job, the hobby, or is it the family? And then carry that conversation to learn more and build that genuine connection. One thing that I do, it's an unconscious thing that I put in the book as well, is I'm a good listener, and being a good listener, you want to make really good eye contact. But when you actually tilt your head to the side, it's a vulnerability thing. It makes people feel that you're actually listening and that you actually are attentive. And I do it because I'm genuinely curious, and it's just something that I've watched over videos of myself and seen, and wonder like how can I make this better. Um, and then like uh, I talk about like following up with these people, because you go to an event, you meet tons of people, and how do you follow up? A lot of it is by just like being clear on the things that you guys have talked about and what your connection is. And that's why it's important to connect on more than just business. Like you got to know who they are as a human being. So then you have a real connection. Like you and I were talking about, our love for sports and soccer, and then, and our love for sales. And it just, you see how it just like carried over so organically and naturally. And we were on the bus and it was like a snap and we were at the next place. And I didn't even realize we were talking that long. Right. So I love getting lost into conversations with people that has a lot of meaning. And networking is a lot more simple than what we perceive it. And the way that I actually wrote the book is like, you could be someone that is an introvert and you do not like networking. I give you step-by-step process on like what questions to ask, how to really genuinely connect, so then that you don't burn yourself out. I think there was one guy that reminds me of Pittsburgh's guys. Forget his name off the top of my head, but he's the jet guy. And we were talking about like networking and just how important networking is. And sometimes it can burn us out. Like you don't have the time to go to a bunch of events. Maybe your
Mhm.
business is doing well and you don't really require it to show up to these events or whatnot. But regardless of it, what we're trying to focus on is just a really smooth, fun experience when networking. And again, my goal behind it is to like walk out and make a friend. And so in the book, that's the complete goal. It's like, how can you make a friend within like 5 minutes? What questions can you ask? And then how can you build rapport where this person then sees you as a trusted person, where then you can schedule time to chat more about maybe a business opportunity or maybe some collaborations. So that stuff always goes back to like the intention, but like the book, I'm just trying to, the whole goal is to empower you as a business professional to network like nobody's business, to create opportunities like nobody's business, and then to be excited about what's coming in the next couple of months. And that's the whole goal. It's like, if you knew you had a networking event and you were excited about it because of the people you're going to meet, your entire mentality would change. If you knew that you can meet one person in the next network event, that will change your business forever. If you can go to this next event and you can make a collaboration happen with two people that you do know, that could be life changing. So I'm going there to make friends. I'm going there to connect, but it's always bigger about building relationships.
I love that. And you said also that to me, like your mission is very simple, which I resonate with you on this always. But it's help people
Mm.
become the best version of themselves. Because
Yes.
when they stop believing that that version of themselves was possible. So like even in your coaching, man, like and your faith, right? Like we talk about faith so much in this
Oh
conversation
man.
and the way you show up. How do
Hmm.
you incorporate that into the people that you work with who feel that they are at their own rock bottom or that best version of themselves is not possible? Because I'm sure very early on in your conversations as a coach, you do run into that.
Yeah. So there's this saying, it's like a thought to belief. Belief becomes an emotion. Emotion becomes an action. Experiencing that emotion I don't want. What's the belief that I have that's creating it?
Right.
So what's going on, it's like, I think about helping people understand like what are their worst fears, exposing it, and then moving forward in their life. And so if your worst fear is these things that are gonna not happen, then that's what you hyper focus on. It's just gonna, it just doesn't make any sense to me, right? And so what I try to do is change the belief system by changing the way that you think about what you think about. And it all comes up to like the questions that you ask yourself internally. Each person is different. Like there's not one person that's going through the same emotional experiences that someone else has. Someone else might be a little bit further along. So navigating an individual is understanding again, like what it is that you want. So it always starts like, what do you want? What have you done to go and create it? What happens once you get it? How is that going to change your life, your family's life? What's the consequence if you don't do those things? And then does it make sense to go and do the work or do that thing? So it's almost like we as human beings like to overcomplicate things. Um, I try my best to uncomplicate it for them to help them see what it is that they want so they can then start taking the actions around it. Um, I think, if I'm giving an example, I had a client that was like, he's in car sales, right? Um, this dude is making like $200 commission checks. You know where that goes, bro. That if you're
Yeah.
making $200 commission checks on work and selling cars, and you got $200 commission checks on a used car, you're gonna be fired.
Oh
you're,
yeah.
you're on the you're on your 30-day notice. So he's on his last month, and he has to do a complete turnaround. He hired me to kind of do some work together, and his whole story in his head, it was like, oh, people don't want to buy. I don't, I'm running into the wrong groups and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, fast forward 6 months, he made 100K. Another 6 months, now he's working in finance. So what was the complete shift? The complete shift was doing the work that he was in resistance to. So he wasn't picking up the phone, making the calls. He wasn't going over to service and introducing himself to new customers that were coming in. He wasn't the first guy to run out into the lot and try to like introduce and talk to people. He started posting photos every time he'd sell a car as a win. So it would show people that he's winning because people want to be around winners, right?
Right.
So this mentality became this hunger to transform and change because he was at a rock bottom. I'm about to get fired, okay, but like I don't even have enough money to pay you for these services. I have enough. I literally have just enough for my commission check that I have to cover about 50%. I was like, down payment, let's go, let's do this, all right. Um, but his determination and his tenacity was the thing that transformed. If you're hungry to win, if you're hungry to get out of where you're at, then it's possible. But if you believe that other story more than the other, then it's not possible. So the transformation, like this underdog story, because I love it, man, because it's like I've been in really hard places and I've done really hard shit.
Yeah.
And those things have only made me a better person. They've only I guess like chiseled away the things that I don't need in this life in order to keep ascending. And so for this guy that I was working with, what he had to let go of is this broke mindset. He grew up broke. He grew up poor, impoverished, and that poverty, that lack of money mindset was showing up in his sales because he was thinking like, oh, I can't afford this car. This person can't afford this car. So he's making the sales about himself. So what ends up happening is what we're talking about is what people self-sabotage is you making your problems about yourself.
They're not
We
going to
make it all up.
like the solution, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And so when I called it out, and it's the thing is people don't hire me to be nice. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, and then I'm going to give you the actions and the steps and to get out of it. And so when we talked about the things to get out of it, it was like, this is super uncomfortable. I don't know if I can do this. It's like, just do it. You can see what happens. And then it was like clockwork. After his first Facebook post, it just was like the same thing. So if we take this back, right, and we look at this, it's like, okay, so all of us believe and want something, but there's something preventing us from having it. What is that preventing you from having what you want? And what's the cost of that happening over a long period of time? And then are you committed to doing the work in order to get to where you want to be, regardless of how it looks and how to get there? That's where the faith element comes in, because you need faith in order for it to materialize.
It's so much of the inner work, man. Like the inner really does create the external. And it's something even for myself that I've had to work through in my life, where it's just you tell yourself this limiting belief dialogue is that's just bullshit. It really is. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you say, you know what? I'm gonna pick up the phone. I'm gonna make that call. And then you make the call and it goes so well. And then all of a sudden you're like, I could do this a million times, right? Like you have this flip that happens inside of you, truly. And I'm so glad that you're able to bring that out of people, Kava, because the way that you break down information to people and resonate with them, because you're just truly being authentic and to your core and telling them what they need to hear, right? So if somebody wants to go deeper with you, whether it's one-on-one coaching or bringing you in to work with their sales team, or just following
Yeah,
along with what you're building, like what's the best way for them to stay connected, and what's the first best
sure.
step?
Yeah, so definitely, I'd say the first one is I've got a new video that I just posted on YouTube. It's about networking. It literally breaks down, a little bit more in depth. I'm on stage with a nice blazer, kind of talking about all the things around networking. I highly recommend you watch it. It's really short. It's only 10 minutes, but it's very highly impactful. I've had the opportunity of sending it to quite a few companies on LinkedIn. I've really enjoyed it. So, creating some speaking opportunities, which is great. But yeah, you can find me on social media at just Kiva Geiger, at Kiva Geiger on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as on X, all the same handles. But yeah, just shoot me a message and I'm more than happy to connect with you, schedule a call. Discovery calls are free. I'm always just happy to tell you what I see and, help you navigate where you want to be and, how to crush, your sales goals, how to bring your team, together in a more efficient way. I'm really here to help you win and help you see the opportunities.
No question about it. Anybody that just listened to this episode is going to get a ton of value, man. I genuinely appreciate you. But before you go, I do
Yeah.
have one last question for you that I ask every single
Yeah.
guest, and it's kind of more of a fill in the blank, man.
Hmm.
It's the world needs more people who.
That's a good one. The world needs more people to. Is that okay?
Who or two, either way.
Okay. Grateful
Yeah.
because you're alive, man. We're alive today. It could be worse in any capacity, and you got to give gratitude to that. You're waking up, and yeah, really, really blessed, man. I really appreciate it. Oh, and I wanted to add this on here is I have a cheat sheet, sales cheat sheet for high ticket sales. So if anyone is interested in downloading it, just reach out to me or reach out to Ron, and I'll send you that PDF.
Yeah, man. And if you want to send me a link to that, even or anything like that, I'll make sure to include any other
Sure.
connecting material to you in my description here. But Kava, I just want to say thank you again, man. This has been just such an incredible conversation. Any last things you want to leave with the audience?
I say like the biggest one for me is like your vulnerability is your credibility. So be more vulnerable about where you're at in your steps and reach out for help when you need help. You'd be surprised that there's a majority of people out there that are willing to support you on your journey. And if you're willing to take that risk and chase after what's important to you, like just do it. Like this life is so short, and there's just so many things that are happening right now, and your sanity, your mental health are a big thing. You and I have talked about mental health quite a bit. And, if you're a guy that's struggling with mental health, you know, reach out. There's so many people to really support you. And I've seen a lot of brothers, as they get into their 30s, things pop up. So, talk about your mental health, and reach out, support each other. And, Ron, man, I really appreciate you for having me today, man.
Thank you, Kava. You've been gracious with your time, and I appreciate you being here. This has been another incredible episode of Great American Underdog, where you can get the courage to act, the resilience to keep going, and the discipline when motivation fades. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you.